I think we're in business, people. I think it's starting right here, right now, today.
Right now.
Right here, right now.
Right here, right now.
What's starting?
Place I wanna be. It's the concert.
Oh, the concert. Are you talking about the Olympics opening ceremony from last night? The
I missed everything.
satanic display.
Well, it's every time the French do anything organized and theatrical, it's satanic somehow. Do you remember when they were like walking around on like backwards bug people? And it was like a few years ago. They were all dressed like the alien from Alien and doing mass acrobatics together in some fucking festivity.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, I watched it and then I saw the response of people who were outraged by it. And I was like, what the fuck did you expect?
What was satanic
France.
about it? Besides, French.
They had this kind of Last Supper looking thing with drag queens and
Okay.
So Americans were outraged.
Europeans too.
Oh.
They also had the band Gojira, like metal playing.
Okay.
Marie Antoinette beheaded, and like so it was that part was cool.
So it was like an anti-clerical display
the
from
rapper
France.
Rinka.
So the leftists just
performed.
got elected in the French government, and already they're destroying the church through radical anti-clerical
it was woke
displays.
posturing.
Nice.
Okay. So the French Revolution is woke now. Huh?
Yes,
Okay.
and
Well,
yeah. I was kind of disappointed by the March of Nations. I gotta say,
Yeah.
They had them on little boats going down the Seine or whatever.
it's not really a march.
And it's not really a march, no.
No.
And it was kind of weird because some countries would share a bigger boat.
Yeah.
That was cool, but then they'd put some of the countries on like their own little tiny boat, and they were rocking around. It was raining a lot. It was all kind of messed up.
Maybe it is a metaphor for the collapse of the international system of guarantees and rule of law.
God is dead, Satan lives. We all know that.
So which nations would share a boat?
Lots of them.
Was it like the America and Britain?
No, because they have huge delegations, so they got their own boats. It was jarring and disorienting to watch. Because as the would go on, there would be like different things like on the banks of the river. So like they'd focus in on the boats, and then it would cut to like BMX bikers, but they're wearing like kind of like Napoleonic hats, but like cool ones.
Were
that are
there like
white.
artistic clowns? Were they present?
There were some clowns, yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. Or, yeah.
Like
Yeah. No, it was,
clowns
it was,
would have master's degrees in clown school, probably.
Yes.
Well,
Mm.
yeah, I mean, at least, literature or something.
They have clown
Sociology.
schools there.
They do. And the state supports clowns.
Oh,
Yes.
all right.
Sounds like Canada to me.
That's right. Well, state-supported clowns.
Also I might cough. Ray and I got like Havana syndrome.
Wow. Everybody's getting Havanaed over here except me.
Might have noticed last time that that Ray was sick, and then something happened to me.
I'm still sick, but
he's still sick.
Much better, yes. But we can't laugh because when we laugh, we cough.
Yeah, so we're staying serious today.
It'll be a humorless episode.
Of course.
I won't be doing.
There we go.
No, James Mason for us today.
No.
Hey guys, welcome to The Empire Never Ended with Boris, Fritz, and Ray.
Better late than never.
Better late than never.
Hi.
We're here and we're ready to remember. Remember that which came before is unburdened by the now.
Yeah. Well,
Fascists didn't just fall from the coconut tree, Ray.
Are you a racist?
Whoa, is that a new one?
That's JD Vance.
I thought that's him.
Yeah.
Good voice recognition, Ray.
Yeah.
Well done. Well, he's a big fan.
I don't know how, but somehow something in my subconscious said that's J.D. Vance.
Yeah. How many times have you seen Hillbilly Elegy?
Not once.
Me neither. Should we watch it?
No.
Is it? It's Ron Howard.
That's going too far.
Okay.
Fuck that.
Yeah.
Communism.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, today's episode was supposed to be the first in our look at Liberty Lobby.
Yes.
And Willis Carto. And we will talk a little bit about Liberty Lobby.
We've peeked under their bed a few times.
We have. It's really been looming since the last arc. It's, I think, probably our biggest omission in the last American arc.
There was quite big omissions.
There were some quite big omissions.
Yeah. I think we will mostly
Eugenics.
Well, we'll mostly cover those groups now. It's Liberty Lobby, National States' Rights Party, and the National Renaissance Party. 3 big things that we didn't cover.
Yeah. We just passed through. We darkened their doorsteps. We darkened their towels, even.
Yeah. We did like 5 episodes on Ezra Pound. So.
For real.
That's true. And we did how many on National Alliance? And
God, too many.
Yeah. Because that's
Holy.
also directly related to this. And yeah.
Free holy.
Free holy. Yes.
Free holy.
But I was kind of thinking about usually at this point in the arc, we do some sort of recap. It's been about 20 episodes into this arc so far, right? Not all of them have been
good.
Not all of them have been good. Not all of them have been in the arc.
I'm
Let's
lying.
say.
They were all great.
But also, I think Liberty Lobby is a good place to do a kind of recap because it's an important turning point.
Yeah.
And I think it's because they play such an important role. Willis Carto plays such an important role in shaping how we understand like the American radical, extreme, far right today.
Yeah. The major threads of the post-war American fascist movement came out of here, like the ones that survived decades after decades.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we mentioned National Alliance, right? That comes from Carto. He was good at starting lots of projects and then losing control of them.
Yeah, wasn't well liked.
So this is also connected to the, people in Congress, important people in Congress, National Youth Alliance, which I guess we can kind of through that even thank Carto for Resistance Records.
Yeah,
it goes pretty far. I don't think he really imagined it that way.
I got a lot of people to thank for that one, though.
Yeah. I mean, Liberty Lobby is especially weird because it's called Liberty Lobby. It has that name.
Yeah,
sounds like like a respectable conservative organization or something like this, and it's Nazis.
Yeah,
who actually had contacts with legitimate influential politicians and so on.
Oh yeah, and like the early 60s, I mean, and we'll talk more about this next week when we get into the biography of Willis Carto and get into some of the, the details about Liberty Lobby and its kind of spin-off organizations, because there's a lot of stuff, they had their own radio show, Noontide Press, lots of different publishing houses, lots of different magazines, publications. But in the early 60s, at their height, I think one of their publications had a subscriber base of about 200,000, which is
a lot. Yeah,
a lot considering the fact that he's like a Yakian Nazi.
Yeah.
Yes.
And assuming this is a paid subscription base, I mean,
they kept it cheap, I think.
Even so, it's still quite a lot of money added up.
Yeah.
It's like if it's $1, it's still a lot of money added up.
But they're also important along with John Birch Society, and they started exactly at the same time, within months of each other in 1958.
That's right. We talked about that during the Revelos.
Yeah, they're also responsible for this kind of bringing in more of this libertarian language.
Yeah.
They're also Carto would also be a bridge towards like the militia movement, towards like really kind of disparate and extreme groups.
Yes.
That he kind of sought to bring together, unite the right.
Yeah, exactly.
And
young Republicans all the way to full on Roman saluting, armband wearing Nazis.
Yeah. And, his goal initially was to kind of push the Republican Party as far right as possible.
Yeah.
He would take on different kind of he would have his own party later, the Populist Party.
Yeah.
I think in the 80s. David Duke also, had a lot of important support from Liberty Lobby, both in his publishing and everything else. Of course, the America's premier Holocaust denial think tank.
Oh yeah,
the Institute for Historical Review, also a Carto project.
So banal sounding, so normal.
But that's his whole point, right?
Yeah.
His whole idea is that you take a lot of this kind of crazy shit and make it seem boring and acceptable to regular ass conservatives who he knows are racist and whatever. So yeah.
He came. Willis Carto began his career in. You'll tell us maybe when we really start on Carto a bit later. But he came out of Birch Society, right?
No. Carto, Birch. So
he's the exception.
Okay.
He's the one who did.
I think we might have fucked that up then in the Revelo thing.
No, Revelo
came out of Birch Society.
Revelo came out of John Birch Society.
Yeah, but I thought Carto's Liberty Lobby was a kind of a breakaway, like a split.
No, people often
JBS.
put them together because, again, they both start in 1958.
Like almost the same time, yeah.
At pretty much the same time. They both have a similar kind of...
A lot of cross-membership.
Cross-membership, also a lot of this kind of conspiratorial stuff.
Cross-leadership, too, I should add. Yeah.
Really. No, there was a lot of crossover there. And, I mean, they started to diverge later on.
Yeah.
And then mostly due to, Carto's like kind of overt anti-Semitism and kind of more overt racism, which is, as we know from the previous American arc, the reason that a lot of guys went into the Birch Society and then left. They were dissatisfied with how,
wasn't
racist and anti-Semitic enough for them.
Yeah,
and I think I remember that one of the bigger differences between the Liberty Lobby and Birch's was that Liberty Lobby was critical of the war in Vietnam, and Birch's were supporting it. I think.
Well. Yeah, they were critical. Again, we'll talk more about this later, but in the next episode. But they had kind of different positions on Vietnam. They were also supportive. They were against it at first, but then if America committed to something, they should do it right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. There's probably a version of the war they would support wholeheartedly, like
for sure.
But in general, they're a lot more. Traditionally isolationist.
If it had more swastikas, for example.
For example.
And somehow, like, Birchers got mocked a lot more than Liberty Lobby because Carto was able to present things in a little bit more of an acceptable manner than just being like, everyone's a communist. Like,
right.
Like Bircher, even though, like, when we did the Bircher episodes back in the day, we talked about how so many of the Bircher talking points that seemed crazy back in the 60s are like normal conservative talking points today, like the war on Christmas and all kinds of other shit.
You're basically saying that Nazis are a bit less anti-communist than more kind of classical American rightists.
More about tradition in a way, no? The tradition.
It starts getting a little complicated there, right? Because he is a Yakian, no?
Yeah.
But like, we'll talk more about that. But again, one of the reasons that we're talking about this now is that, the 50s are a really important time. So like I said, John Birch Society and Liberty Lobby start in 1951.
Right.
But like for, let's say more acceptable mainstream conservatism, William F. Buckley's National Review was founded in 1956.
With the help of his buddy, Revelo P. Oliver.
Right, exactly. Who's, the common thread between all three of these. Although, William F. Buckley and Carto were, kind of in the early period, rather, saying favorable things about one another. And they later have cut some pretty famous falling outs.
Yeah.
But, the 50s.
So Liberty Lobby and John Birch Society were started in 58.
58. Okay. Yeah. And National Review in 56. Although, the predecessor to Liberty Lobby, which was a Carto's group called Liberty and Property. Very kind of
tradition, family, and property.
Also very kind of libertarian in language.
Also, yes,
And they had, and he was affiliated with another publication that was kind of big in right wing circles, kind of in the early 50s.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, the 50s are important here, right? McCarthyism kind of gives the right wing a new kind of reason to exist again.
So Liberty and Property, I think we mentioned them. They were affiliated with Del Valle's Constitution Defenders, whatever the name is.
Okay.
Right.
Which were founded in the early 50s.
Okay.
Because as Pedro Del Valle was one of the, OG Liberty Lobby. That was one of their credible guys.
Okay.
Because that's what they sought from the beginning, is that like, look, we have guys that are, war heroes and, traditional good, hardworking American guys.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, back to the 1950s, right? McCarthyism, kind of ends. McCarthy dies in 57.
Yeah, like a loser.
Okay.
There's your obituary. What I wanted to say. I'll edit that in.
But, I think there's this kind of incorrect view, and maybe I'm wrong, that a lot of people see the 1950s this way, is that, people see it as this kind of almost apolitically prosperous time.
Mm-hmm.
As in like
everybody got home from the war.
As in like, yes, it's extremely anti-communist, but that's it. Everybody's kind of agreeing on that.
Yeah.
And that's not quite true. For a lot of different reasons. But, these guys, for example, this kind of growing extreme right wing are trying to re-legitimize themselves because there's a little something that happened called World War II that kind of fucked them up a little bit. And how they were
little
viewed.
bit. I mean, we know that like in Atlanta already in 1946, they're Colombians in brown shirts.
Exactly. And that's why we are doing this recap.
Yeah.
Because we have to ask ourselves, what happened?
Yeah.
Why is it like this?
Yeah.
So yeah, let's take a look back. We can now take a look back at the previous 20 episodes and try to kind of pull out some main themes that'll help us understand moving forward how things develop, because they obviously do develop, right? And go into all the wonderful and magical directions that we have covered before, and that we will continue to talk about because we're crazy.
Yeah.
So it seems that we have like kind of as one thread in this arc so far, the Americans who were infatuated with European fascism, right? Who kind of got some inspiration from what was going on.
We need to name all these groups. So what would you call a bunch of American Nazis who really love Europe and the idea of the European white?
Europhiles.
Okay. Got it. We got the Europhiles.
Well, I think we called them every Tom, Dick, and Henry.
Oh, right. We got all the Tom, Dicks, and Henrys. Yeah. You mean you're talking about like white people, like the old ones?
Well, so there's a couple different episodes. I mean, okay, so like if we think about that was, I think, the second episode in the arc.
Right.
And that's establishing, the elements of the American ruling class that were kind of really into European fascism.
Like almost all of them.
Yeah.
I mean, like to the point when if you found a few super rich industrialists in America who were like, I don't know about that Hitler, you'd be like, you're obviously a communist.
Right.
This is the American way right now as an industrialist is to support fascism wholeheartedly.
Right.
Yeah.
And the kind of pinnacle of that in this arc so far has been Lawrence Dennis, right? He's the one that took that and ran with it and came up with an American fascism. Like very,
as part of like an explicitly named project in that way. I suppose you're right, actually, because he would be up to that point. You'd have it colored with different lenses. Okay, the American Legion would say like we are to America what the fascisti are to,
right?
But I think
But I'm putting the Legion and the others
Dennis
in a different category that I'll get to in just a second.
Just to mention why Dennis is important there. I think it's because in this way he was one of the first people to actually start groups that were named American fascist. It was some half-hearted party he started at some point after he was what do you call those? Not a legionnaire, legate. After he was an American legate for the empire.
Yeah.
And he also had more kind of European economic ideas about the whole thing too, right? Especially compared to some of the more homegrown varieties that we'll see later, especially in the 50s and 60s. No?
Yeah. I think also like Yockey and Ezra Pound also can be counted as Europhiles. Yeah. Although, okay, I'm sorry to mention people from a different arc.
But I think we should, because I mean, Yockey is extremely important to Carto.
Yeah. But so, for example, people like Pound and Yockey, they have these like, they are Europhiles in terms of they really like different aspects of European fascism, but they also have this thing where they have this approach. Okay, that's good for Germany and Italy, but America is different.
Right.
Yeah.
We need to do different things here. But also Pound and Yockey approach this view also differently, because Pound is like, he actually kind of likes America, unlike Yockey.
Yeah.
And he's like into Thomas Jefferson and things like this, and democracy in this like racial Anglo-Saxon.
Which is, I think, where Carto departs from Yockey as well. Yeah.
And Yockey is like more kind of really looks down on America, but like he's not a Christian at all. But when he's in America, he's like affiliated with that Christian Crusader group or whatever, or something.
Yeah.
Because he realizes, okay, that's what the Americans are into, so I'm gonna affiliate myself with that. But I think with some contempt as well.
But I think also, and this might come clearer as we continue past this point in the arc, but I want to spend a lot of time looking at Catholic corporatism and how that factors into some of this idea about what European fascism means. So, because I'm also still kind of bothered by how much someone like Yockey, or there was another dude, or even Evola, really, how much they sound like some kind of version of a Catholic reactionary, but there's nothing Christian necessarily inside of it. But it fills in the same kind of structure that Catholic reactionaries build.
Or maybe because they share some common ground.
Well, I think that might be corporatism. That's what I'm interested in.
Or even even things older than corporatism, like maybe that like spiritually, let's say, inspire corporatism, they really have extremely positive view of like some medieval societies in Europe and things like that, feudalism,
right,
and so on. Like even, if they're not Christians, they still like, Evola would see good things about medieval European societies, not necessarily the church part, but yeah,
absolutely. So yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely one thread that we've had so far, and I think that's best shown through that episode 250, the second episode in the arc, and then the episodes on Lawrence Dennis. The other ones that I did that were kind of the little spin-off ones about about von Siatsky.
There are some fucking
the kind of the ethnic fascisms. Are kind of within that same category too, right? I mean, those are things that are kind of modeled around like a more of a European conception of fascism, like with the Synarchists, for example, like, very kind of traditional European fascist uniforms and all that kind of stuff. And this is also a lot of what we talked about in our first American arc, and didn't talk about this other major thread in the arc so far, which is the kind of native-born American reactionary politics that can't necessarily be categorized as fascist, but influence fascism, and goes the other way. It's America's horse in the race. And that's like, when we talk about the American Legion's probably one of the best examples of that, because it comes out of, it arises kind of simultaneously to other proto-fascist movements.
To
Europe,
Italian proto-fascist
and French
groups and French as well,
and the like, but is its own thing, and continues on in a way that that is probably much greater than any of its counterparts in Europe, right? I mean, like, now you have any U.S. presidential or candidate for anything goes to speak to the American Legion. You know what I mean?
And it's not, and probably because their answer isn't overtly fascist, and even now today, as like their power as an institution has waned over time, nonetheless, these, like, the things that they set up back in the 30s, shit like Boys State, stuff like that, where they actually train young people to become legionnaires and like become politicians for legionnaire ideas, that's still happening, despite the fact that overall as an organization it's calmed the fuck down a lot. But you can't overstate how much influence the American Legion had on interwar and post World War II politics in the US.
And I think that does have some sort of influence on how people like Carto view the long game, in terms of like, it gradually kind of setting up institutions or like lobbying groups that will push push their ideas out.
Exactly. Yeah. A strong political focus, a lot of work in the K Street, that kind of thing.
Right.
Where, by the way, I think National Alliance's first newsletters all appeared on K Street. Like you could get the craziest shit from them.
I guess another maybe example in addition to American Legion of like American native proto-fascism that influenced fascism later on would be the Klan.
Yes, absolutely.
But they're have a completely different history from the Legion. And they, like what I will be talking about soon is the National States Rights Party in the late 50s and 60s. And that's really a period when the Klan sort of fuses with fascism almost completely.
Right.
Like a lot of these members from of the party, which is a fascist party, are also in the Klan. And it's really hard to distinct. I mean, like, are they Klan people or are they National States Rights people? What's going on? And there were earlier attempts, like in the 30s, to fuse those politics, like with the common like rallies of the Klan and Bund, and so on. But that was more controversial in that period. Like the Klan not all of the leaders of the Klan liked that association in the 1930s.
Right.
Yeah.
But it seems less controversial in 1950s, or at least like there are people, unlike the 1930s, I think. I'm not sure, but that rally that happened, you know, the famous rally of Bund, the German-American Bund, and the KKK, I think also the Silver Shirts, I think some of those leaders of the Klan were thrown out of the organization afterwards or very severely criticized by some Klan leaders.
Yeah.
But it kind of, in the late 50s, 60s, the reverse happens where some of the Klan leaders try to distance from the Nazis or like fascist groups like the National States Rights Party, and then they are criticized and kind of thrown out of the movement because of that. So things, which is weird because like that's, you know, post Second World War history when it's,
But this is when you see this kind of big reevaluation of these groups kind of starting to either fuse some of those pre-war kind of more European influenced fascist ideas with what they understand to be the like Americanist fascism, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is, and that takes us. So this is we can see this as a kind of a fusion. Not to say that these
I mean, this
disappear.
happens later, right? Because we, you know, you talk about the Colombians. That's something where that tension still very much exists.
Yeah.
Right? These guys are trying to be the first neo-Nazis.
Yeah.
And getting shut down by the Klan / police.
Yes.
But eventually a space is opened up for you to be both a Europhile as well as a more Americanist or even Klan type.
And I think this
nativist.
comes, and this is important again when we start talking about groups like Liberty Lobby, because they start pulling out this traditional American racism a lot more in response to things like the civil rights movement, desegregation and the like. And that's again where you see this thread that we've been talking about throughout this arc so far, as in, you know, bringing out guys like Madison Grant, the tradition of eugenics, and, you know, putting that out there again for, you know, mass conservative audiences who might be hostile to desegregation, right? And that's something that, you know, we've talked about now in quite a few episodes, I think is one of the most important parts of this arc so far.
I would like to point out as well that we are currently in a sort of a microcosmic moment of that, where there was a lot of attention paid by, to be fair, the American right, like the popular American right, on minute identity issues that they needed to make political theater out of, you know, and attacking vulnerable minorities as they often do. But in that climate now, we are seeing exactly these same narratives. Like Holocaust revision light is now something you can easily find from more or less mainstream figures branching out of the Candace Owens universe, for instance. It's not hard to find now, and it's presented exactly as well, look, you conservative are confused and angry at all these changes happening, you know, where you can't identify anymore with the young people around you, whatever. So what else are they lying to you about, you know? What else? Could it be? Yeah.
I mean, I think this is something that we're going to see a lot moving forward.
Yeah.
Is just how much shit hasn't changed.
Dude, the Christian Holocaust is back. It's crazy to hear this again. It's like Father Charles Coughlin's talking points are coming out of like Daily Wire conversants, you know.
Who's holocausting the Christians?
The communists, the socialists, whoever, the Chinese. Where have you been? Where have you been, Ray? You know who it is. It's the
communism.
It's
communism.
That's who it is.
Sounds like Canada to me.
That's right. It does fucking sound like Canada. That's why we're here in the United States.
But this is an ongoing thing, or they're talking about Soviet Union or what?
I think, the most recent kind of revisionist light narratives that have been coming out of these post Daily Wire right-wing commentators is focused on, yes, communist crimes historically against the Christians. This is the idea. But that said, there are now attempts to sort of open that up further and slide in all sorts of things, you know, like the Great Replacement is now part of the Christian Holocaust and yada, yada, yada. So you just move on down the line.
Oh, I mean, yeah, anything that you read from, you know, we get a lot of this talk today, especially now that it's like U.S. election season.
Yeah.
Oh, you've never seen this kind of talk before coming from,
please,
you know,
police.
In the national discourse. It's gotten so bad.
Okay.
If you read shit from the 50s and early 60s, it's not that far off.
No.
They're saying the country's on the brink of a civil war. Communist China is bringing drugs into the border, across the border.
Yes.
It's literally the exact same thing. So this shit I'm reading about, like, you know, the Liberty Lobby, and they're publishing shit about how communist China is sending dope through Mexico to America to you know, dumb down the American population.
Exactly.
It's literally the same thing that
Amazing.
we see today, and it's the same actors. And then, of course, then it was CBS News, this communist broadcasting system.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of parallels that you see, except that, like, you know, in some ways, the splits that you saw within, like, for example, the Republican Party, and you'll get this a lot with when we talk about this post-war period and like the kind of excitement about, you know, people like George Wallace and the like, and some of the shit happening around Goldwater, is that, you know, eventually what they call like the Republicrat, internationalist, Zog controlled wing of the party kind of takes over and, you know, runs the Republicans for a long time. And say they see themselves as kind of in the opposition there, and, you know, doing the hard work of trying to bring, and they, you know, very explicitly talk about bringing in, you know, middle class and working class white people who, you know, might have been resistant to a lot of like the tax talk initially, or people that, you know.
Wasn't Biden like mentored or something like this by Strom Thurmond? Is that?
Yeah, Strom Thurmond was also supportive of the Liberty Lobby.
Amazing.
One of the congressmen that was, you know.
So Biden has like one guy separates them.
Well, okay, so that makes him like Biden is to Strom Thurmond what William Luther Pierce is to like Rebel O.P. Oliver.
Yeah.
Or what James Mason is to William Luther Pierce.
So the guy who was until yesterday supposed to save us from the fascist Trump was mentored by a guy who's close to Liberty Law.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, nice.
Awesome.
And who's, you know, old as fuck and was in Congress with a bunch of these people who were, you know, close to these guys.
Oh my God. Amazing.
Also, the National States Rights Party wanted Strom Thurmond to be the president of the country. Yes.
Well,
in this country?
That's right, Rick Allen. You would have loved it. You fucking psycho.
I love his voice.
I do too, yeah.
In this country?
He's a cartoon character.
He is. It is. Yeah, he's like Foghorn Leghorn, but, you know, an evangelical psycho.
Yeah.
All right.
And then another kind of sub thread that's kind of part of this American-born kind of, you know, this is a thing that we should address in this arc. Last American arc, we talked a lot about Americanism and what it is.
Yeah.
And I think we should get back to that. And also, you know, that controversial question is whether you should be calling this fascism.
Yeah.
Because in some ways we've seen through this arc that, you know, fascism owes a lot to Americanism.
Oh, yes.
In terms of, you know, seeing it as like the underpinning for kind of racial laws and how one does that.
I mean,
inspiration in general.
Yeah.
So inspiring.
well, an episode that I'm working on now for y'all is about more than just the inspiration, but all the very inspiring financial connections that saturated both Nazi economy and the U.S. economy before, during, and after the war. Hey,
Yeah.
yeah, it's all very tight. So again, here's the question I have. What's the argument for not calling it fascism? That's, I think.
I mean, I think
the,
that there's the very pedantic argument that you hear a lot, and
sure.
that you hear leftists make, like, you know, kind of certain kinds of leftists make.
Territory.
Like, fascism was a very particular
I
historical
know.
phenomenon. It's not coming back.
I used to be there. I used to be there
with.
with you people a long time ago. But now I'm
They
very
do
much,
not have a corporatist
right.
model.
Yes, exactly. I'm so lazy about it these days, though, to be honest. Like, I'm so much on that. If you're having dinner with 10 people and there's one Nazi there, you're at a dinner with 11 Nazis, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I've kind of just adopted that, and it's taken me pretty far.
Yeah.
Like, you know, don't eat dinner with a Nazi.
I mean, this is the kind of question of the arc so far, because it's one thing that, like, you know, we didn't do in the last American arc is look at, you know, look at like the eugenics movement and, you know.
I mean, the thing is, like, you know, fascism, even before the Second World War and the Holocaust, many people, let's say, were not so enthusiastic about those people. So a lot of people, a lot of fascist movements, even in 20s and 30s, in countries that are not Germany and Italy, were trying to distance themselves from fascism and Nazis and saying, we are not that, we are different because of this and that.
Yeah.
So
even the fascists were.
Yeah. So, like, I mean, obviously, that's not the criteria that you should, like, really honor, how they self-identify and so on. And then after the Second World War and the Holocaust and everything, of course, they even more try to hide their politics and pretended that that's not what they are and so on. But, I mean, that's also why people call them neo-fascist. That means it's not only new, but it's somehow different. And I mean, it is. So, like, formally, they're not like the National Democratic Party in Germany, although it's full of tattooed, like swastika tattooed skinheads and so on, does not in its program say that they want a dictatorship or a corporate state or something like this. Also because it's illegal to have something like you would be arrested in Germany.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can't really, like, it doesn't make sense to say they're not neo-Nazis because their program is not a Nazi.
Yeah.
I mean, it can't be.
And then, any more than it would make sense to say that these guys, like these Liberty Lobby types, aren't Nazi just because they say they're into the Constitution or something like that. Like, it doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, and I think what these people came to the realization of is that they don't need, they can jettison a lot of that European, you know,
hoity-toity, fucking tiny
whatever
coffee cups,
mumbo jumbo, and still have their own version of fascism. Because if we're talking still, if we go back to that first thread of the Americans that were into that at the time, you know, with the exception of Lawrence Dennis, who kind of continued, you know, kind of settled down a little bit, you know, he went to prison and stuff, but like he kind of continued developing on his same ideas in some ways, right? Like, he didn't completely go to this,
while he was active, right? Like, and then at a certain point, I think he just got tired and stopped. But I mean, he never,
but like he didn't switch completely to some sort of like, no, I'm like a libertarian.
No.
Whereas I think that, like, you know, a lot of people that did get in trouble for these ideas, and that's, you know, what we saw with the, like, all those ruling class people that were like super into it, and then it's like, okay, well, we're heading towards war. It's not like it's not cool anymore. It's not like they stopped really, for the most part, probably believing in that stuff.
Yeah.
They just needed to find another way to articulate it. And I think that they found that, like, okay, we can get rid of all the, you know, authoritarian Mussolini, Hitler stuff.
Yes.
And still retain, like, the core beliefs. And guess what? It's even more American.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And Liberty Lobby and groups like that make it more American and make it more patriotic and
on top of that,
and acceptable, right?
And on top of that, you luckily happen to be living inside of a state which is also undergoing its own reevaluation of its relationship with post-war fascists and Nazis, and is interested in not seeing these things anyway. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like has its own interest in looking past, let's say, your bizarre fascist coup plan because they got their own. It's called the Green Berets. Oh, okay.
Okay.
It's time.
Just checking what I got here.
Did Carto have any relationship with the Renaissance Party?
I believe so, but I can't 100% confirm that right now.
Okay.
That'll be for next episode.
Okay.
Opa.
Because they were friends with Yoki.
Yeah, that's why I think so. But
I read one of those books that you read, and I don't think that the National Renaissance Party is even mentioned in it. But I'm curious.
But that's the thing. I mean, Carto was active for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, the National Renaissance Party was a bit too brown shirty for him, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but he associated with all kinds of people that were.
He did, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
But they also had books. You know, they met in a salon of the guy's mom. I mean, they had like a fancy little brownstone to hang out in New York. The Renaissance Party dudes.
yeah.
I think now my view, but I will have to read much more. It's strange that there is no book about the National Renaissance Party. That's pretty strange because it is a kind of a weird group. You would think that someone would write a book about them.
I mean, considering the books we have found, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think they are like to me. It seems that at least partially they are some kind of a continuation of the Bund. I think they were founded by some German Americans who were affiliated with the Bund,
Which makes them kind of an outlier in that respect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like the ones who picked up that torch.
Yeah,
After-
the National States Rights Party is like, I think in the South attempts to kind of use the KKK energy and fuse it with fascism.
Big K energy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the Renaissance Party, I think it's this kind of New York-based remnants of the Bund turning into neo-Nazi stuff.
Let's keep in mind too, though, that they also had clan like Grand Dragons related to the Renaissance Party too. I remember during Dan Burroughs' biographical exploration we did. I think he met the local dragon while he was a member of the NSRP through the Renaissance Party.
Yeah.
While he was hanging out with Madole.
Yeah, there's
Wow,
lots of people now. I'm going crazy.
Well, that's the thing.
Reading,
Yeah.
like, you know, Roy Frankhauser.
Yeah, Roy Frankhauser.
Yeah.
He was a
Absolutely.
member of the National States Rights Party, of the American Nazi Party, and the National Renaissance Party at the same time, and also of the Klan, I think.
Amazing. Yeah.
So,
That's who I was thinking of actually, was Frankhauser, because that was the buddy of Burroughs and all them. Yeah, right. I think I might be wrong about this, but I think Dan Burroughs offed himself in Roy's house.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
Frankhauser also had like a LaRouche connection. I think he worked for LaRouche.
So did Carto.
Okay.
Yeah,
nice.
yeah. He has a LaRouche connection later on. I think
that's
in the
interesting.
70s or actually the 80s. Yeah.
Well, like we noticed during the Franklin diaries, there were a lot, or the John Franklin letters, excuse me, there were a lot of weird, unnecessary stabs at the British that seemed to come from nowhere. The LaRouche thread is the one we're really missing. Oh.
You tell him, Ray.
Okay.
Except it wasn't.
I was trying to get him to tell us.
I mean, I didn't read about LaRouche still, but yeah, that's the whole arc probably.
Yeah, we can do our own LaRouche mini arc at some point.
Or comic book or cartoon series would be cool.
Speaking of cartoons, the one little thread that we haven't talked about yet from this arc is Heinlein.
Oh,
And,
yes.
that was a kind of fun.
Shut up, Bright Eyes, and listen to me.
Yeah, Heinlein, what a dick. What a dick. Just a fucking asshole.
But Heinlein's also perfect for this time period, right? Because he really shows that like transition towards like, libertarianism.
Oh, yeah.
The language of libertarianism
Yes.
as being something that comes out of this time period.
Which we also saw in Revel Oliver's John Franklin letters happening contemporaneously with the writing of Starship Troopers by Heinlein. All this is coming out at the same time.
Right.
We hoped, I wouldn't even say we hypothesized, I would say we vaguely hope that Revelo and Heinlein were hanging out together when they were both John Birchers, both the smart dudes in the area. And I'm really, really, wanting to believe that the John Franklin letters were inspired by Hyland. Although it would be much funnier if it was the other way around.
It would be much funnier if it was the other way around. Did you know? Did Hyland never had any connection to groups like Liberty Lobby, right?
No. He actually dipped from the JBS people and immediately started hanging out with the libertarians, who would eventually make the American Enterprise Institute and all that kind of shit, and the Rand Corporation, or all that was where he ended up. And we'll end up there too someday.
We will.
Not as like people, but I mean as podcasters, we're gonna find our way there.
Maybe as people also, unfortunately.
Also, Thiel's got some good points.
Yeah.
You know, have you read his musings about the sacrifice?
I didn't mean like we would
Kidding.
want
He's
to
horrible.
end up there just because.
Right. But the what do you call those little microscopic computers? Nanites?
Mhm.
But the nanites.
Mm.
What are you gonna do?
I mean,
Okay.
Thiel might be a guy who would be into a lot of Liberty Lobby stuff.
Yeah.
From that,
Mhm.
from the early days.
I would even check out if he yeah.
Because like I said, you'd be surprised at how many of these like Liberty Lobby talking points are pretty normal today.
Yes.
Except of course that like they flipped the script on the whole Israel thing.
Right. Yeah.
Because they're part of their whole agitation. And you see this a lot, right? In the 50s and 60s is this like anti-Zionist,
Yes.
specifically anti-Zionist, but rooted in their anti-Semitism.
Like William Luther Pierce would be out during Free Palestine protests as late as the early 70s. And but of course, I mean, like, it's quite obvious what he was up to there. And it sounds like people knew that. Like, they were circulating information being like, you see this guy show up, you kick him out. He's a Nazi.
Yeah. But they were.
It wasn't
they were
a big
still,
problem, I guess. Yeah.
This is still the era where their critique of Zionism is that it's too left wing and that it's part of like a broader communist conspiracy. Not just that like Jews control communism and finance, but they saw it as like specifically like a communist project.
Right.
Mhm.
Yes.
And then when the Soviet Union starts to distance itself from Israel, that's another sign that it's all controlled by the same cabal. And that's the Republicans obviously, and a lot of the far right today in the US have obviously flipped the script on that, are the most pro-Israel.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big difference, but
yes.
Yeah. And I guess I also had some ideas for moving forward, because I'm actually like getting more and more into this time period.
Oh, great.
Than I thought I'd be.
I love the 50s. I never want to leave.
Okay.
I want to
like
stay
early
forever.
60s too seem
Yes.
pretty great for this kind of
There's
stuff.
a lot of stupid garbage going on then.
Well, like before you get Liberty Lobby, you get all kinds of like fucking weird books that I'd like to check out that I think I sent in the chat. And like
some of the foundational worldviews.
Like a lot of like
Christian
the modern
identity is finalized around this time.
Also a lot of the Illuminati stuff.
Yes, that's right. Fluoride conspiracy shit. Illuminati stuff. Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
And like tied into like Carto and
again, this is what I'm
the
saying.
Liberty Lobby.
Just be Catholics.
Mhm.
Just be Catholics. We got it all. We got the anti-Illuminati stuff. We got the anti-Mason stuff. We got the anti-communism. We got a long history of colonization, of various genocides. What is missing, fascists? What is missing for you there? That's what I'm asking. Is it Vatican II? Because we can undo that. I'll make a call. I'll make a call right now.
Okay.
To Frank.
Frank?
Yeah. Frank Pope.
Frank Pope in the Vatican?
Yeah, Frank Pope up there in the
Is that
Vatican.
what you call Francie?
I call him Frank Pope. Yeah. That's how I knew him.
Hey, Frankie.
Back in church.
Hey, Frankie, get rid of Vatican II. So
Hey.
I will physically challenge you to a duel.
Frankie.
They're becoming orthodox now, though, the American fascists. So they figured out that you don't need a pope.
Oh, but there's such a strong new fasci Catholic contingent in the U.S. and they're doing so well for themselves.
I would love it if they started to fight one another.
They have to have their own church. The American Catholic Church has to be a thing, and I'm really.
But imagine if like
to
there's like a American fascist Catholics fighting American fascist Orthodox, all like new converts and stuff. Be great.
They're getting along pretty well
in like
right
Ohio.
Now,
you know what I mean? Like they're getting along now.
For now, yeah.
But wait till they start finally reading the theology.
Oh yeah.
And they'll be like, but in 1175, there's
exactly. Yes. It's going to be a colorful century for American religion in general, I think.
Yeah.
But 50s. Yeah, foundational stuff. Also, let's not forget, this is the time that like they got the fucking MK Ultra thing going. You know what I mean? Like everyone's losing their goddamn minds at this point, you know?
Yeah.
Everyone is going crazy right now. As far as
other programs as well.
Other programs as well.
COINTELPRO, Chaos.
Oh yeah.
A lot of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Some more successful than others.
Okay, this is 60s.
Yeah, it's true. But I'm thinking like
I'm including the 60s in here too.
Mhm.
Like I think everything pre like 68,
you have a concept
68, yeah.
You have a concept of the long 50s.
It is.
Yes,
Yeah, you're right about that, I think. Yeah.
Well, I was making a joke, but
No, it's not a joke. It's a
You tell him, Ray.
Okay.
I wanted to get that I wanted to tell you to put that Bush clip of him talking about nativism in the
which Bush?
Antifa,
W.
Antifa Bush, you know, W.
Antifa Bush?
Yeah.
Is he Antifa Bush? No, I missed a lot here.
No, this is like a video that was going around recently being like, wow, George, like we thought you were an idiot. And it's like a video of his from like 2010 where he's like talking about, and it's just like after he's president. And I guess one of his rare appearances, but it's on C-SPAN.
Okay.
What's interesting about our country, if you study history, is that there are some isms that occasionally pop up. One is isolationism, and its evil twin protectionism, and its evil triplet nativism. So if you study the 20s, for example, there was an American First policy that said, who cares what happens in Europe? Well, what happened in Europe mattered eventually because of World War II. There was Smoot-Hawley, which was a part of an economic policy, which basically said we don't want trade. In other words, let's throw up barriers. And there was an immigration policy that I think during this period argued we had too many Jews and too many Italians, therefore we should have no immigrants. And my point to you is we've been through this kind of period of isolationism, protectionism, nativism. I'm a little concerned that we may be going through the same period.
Yeah. And this is very much the divide that we're going to be talking about here, and how like Liberty Lobby conceptualizes like the wing of the right that is controlled by like the Council on Foreign Relations,
Sure.
and the Rockefellers, and the Jews. Getting basically.
Was that like it was George trying to say how invading Iraq is actually anti-racist? Because it's like, if you're a isolationist, that also means that you're nativist.
Yeah.
Because if you thought wars,
I mean,
everywhere.
I think his point was, and he says that like, isolationists thought that what was going on in Europe didn't matter, and now, but World War II showed them it did matter,
right?
Yeah.
And
those people were also racist.
Yeah.
Yes.
But now, when we invade countries like people did in the Second World War, it also means that automatically we are not racist.
Yeah, we're doing it for the right reasons.
If I didn't go to war because they were Arab, that would be racist, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you got to be consistent.
Yeah. And it like cuts to like a very multi-ethnic audience, and he has, I forgot about like his fucking face.
What's wrong with his face? Got the face of a man who can put food in his family.
The famous line that like, oh, he'd be a good guy to have a beer with. He doesn't drink.
I would do acid with him.
I would, in the kind of like
MK Ultra style,
in the current like painting.
What do you mean with him?
Well, I wouldn't want him to have all the MK Ultra. I mean, I would want some of it at least. It's boring to watch somebody else have fun. You know?
But he says it again later. But he says it more recently. That same line: nativism, isolationism, and I forget what the third one is. And then like the Fox News people are like, "Oh, fuck you!" Like what a pussy! Like, and it's kind of nice to see Carto's dream come true.
Yeah, and then also, guys, there is the other angle we've covered on this show about identifying Americanism within a field of fascism in a larger sense, and that is, of course, the efforts to which people that, by all rights, should probably be called American fascists of some kind, or proto-fascists or whatever, but the way that they were able to sort of whitewash their own activities by focusing on elements of American fascism that were the wackiest, essentially, and holding these guys up. Lawrence Dennis went through this a few times in what were show trials, not, Like he wasn't one of the plotters. He wasn't a joiner. He wasn't really. He was a talker.
If I recall, they had trouble getting any of the allegations to stick to him.
No, they
right?
couldn't
Because he's
connect
just
him
some fucking, you know,
he'd
he
raise
was kind
money
of above
but
a lot of that.
he was also kind of a middleman in a way, but he wasn't really like he wasn't a plotter. He wasn't making any coups, and so but he did go through 2 trials that essentially accused him of exactly this, both of which fell apart, including with the judge dying during one of them.
Oh, right.
At one point, people said it was because he wouldn't stop. Lawrence Dennis would, keep making fun of him, and then he died. But whatever. But the point is that like these trials were exactly focused on characters, like the freaks of the week, right? At the expense of a more detailed analysis of where these people came from, why they were there, who was actually funding them. Because again, Lawrence Dennis himself pointed this out. If they actually wanted to investigate American fascism, they'd be investigating the American ruling class. They'd be investigating the state. They'd be investigating some of the oldest families in the country. You know what I mean? And nobody's going to do that.
Right.
So and that goes again with the eugenics process. I mean, this was a very much part of the American institution. This was science in America, and suddenly at a certain point, everybody started to pretend that it was just the freaks of that community that were responsible for it, and all the responsible ones were, cleaning their hands.
I mean, one of my favorite examples from this arc is when what's his face in court uses the American eugenicists as his defense.
I think it's Emory Burke.
Yeah.
The leader of the Colombians.
Yes.
Where he's
And
like,
he gives
this
a
is
4-hour speech, actually, in which he cites his influences, like Lothrop Stoddard and Madison Grant, and making a point that his influences are not foreign.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly right. Yeah, and not only that, we would hear those arguments even from Germans during Nuremberg, who were trying to say, like, listen, we were just trying to do what y'all are doing.
Yeah.
So that's also a very interesting part of this arc that we didn't talk about yet, and that is, of course, part of what makes it so difficult to really get your handle on what Americanism means as a kind of a fascism is because it's constantly engaged in the self-denial in a way that a lot of the freaks that we like to focus on don't do,
right.
And that,
which is why it's easy, it was easy to throw a Von Siatsky under the bus because, he's just so ridiculous, with his uniforms and parading around and grandstanding and I control armies of hundreds of thousands and this, that, and the other thing. And it was all bullshit. I mean, that's great.
The Black Dragon Society.
Black Dragon Society, great example of that.
A way to talk about fascism while talking about foreignism, which is actually still today how people prefer to approach it, from a liberal perspective, especially that this is something that came from abroad, and like once the Madison Square thing happened, oh look how crazy that was, but thank God it's over now.
And that the Madison Square, Bund rally was like important, compared to like the foundation of the American Legion. Or the fact that like, the Black Legion that we talked about controlled,
controlled like employment for works progress administrator people. You know what I mean? Like all up and down the chain, it was these guys. Very much part of the American fabric. And
of course, like as you said too, before when off mic, the connection that all these guys have to the state, the relationship that they have to the state is so deep that like, okay, there was maybe this semblance of a brown scare right before and during World War II, where like some of these people got in trouble and then they had to, figure out everything after that. But I mean, it was a short period, and they of course were all, very close to and fans of guys like J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI.
Yeah. Which is why, for me lately, and I'd love to hear if you guys have had to deal with this too. For me lately, it's become very difficult to find myself agreeing with like Biden head, coconut pilled libs on TV, because their main thing right now is to say that what's coming is American fascism, and I don't disagree. But it's the thing is like I think the way that they picture it is different than the way that I picture it.
Yeah,
like they picture it as the beer hall putsch And then suddenly there's like fucking SS officers rolling around. But, I picture it more like there's just a little shove, There's just a little bit of a shove here, a little bit of a pull here. You realign this and that. It's not far off from what Americanism has always meant. There's just there's a few little renovations to make. And essentially you're there, you're there living the American Legion dream.
And how a lot of them imagine like a society in which like, Willis Carto will say that he's not racist.
Yeah.
Or like, and these guys are racist. They are racial separatists and they believe in, separate but equal development.
Are you a racist?
But the state shouldn't be used to provide unequal opportunities to other groups.
Yes.
As if, the state providing, like centuries of unequal opportunities to build wealth is not like, the same similar thing.
It gets so goddamn blurry.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you. And that's kind of what I was saying early on with reading about, this time period in particular, is that it's, you can easily switch out a lot of like the writings and rhetoric of the 1960s.
Yeah.
And now.
Yeah.
And, yes, it's very annoying to see this as this new thing, this coming American fascism that's, influenced by whatever Russian agents and this, that, and abroad. And, and in fact, like, and I've said this, I said this in the last American arc too.
Or that it's Orban. Sorry. That's the craziest thing. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I think that what you see out of this, this period, this post-war period, is that kind of this American model wins internationally. Right. Yeah. And I said that in the last American arc, and I've said it a million times before.
Yeah.
But, it's 14 words that people are reciting in Russia and Ukraine and, all around the world, not, whatever, some other shit.
Yeah.
Like, there's some Americans who are like, we're like the neo-Banderites or whatever, but it that model, like kind of Anglo-American, neo-Nazi and fascist model is the one that's gone out in the world now.
Yeah.
And like, they feed off of each other, obviously, but like the kind of whole identitarian racial white race stuff comes from the US.
Yeah.
At least in this kind of modern interpretation. And it, it develops out of this time period, especially.
Yeah.
Symbols, all the, they love, the order. They love,
Look, it's not hard to find. Okay. I mean, I was out of the US quite recently, and it was not hard to find KKK graffiti as far out as like Eastern Europe, for instance.
Oh, of course.
I mean, it's insane.
Yeah. I mean, look at all those like, Eastern European skinhead bands and shit. They have all like fucking Southern themed bullshit, like Klan.
Yeah.
Like,
it's insane, yes.
Yeah. Well,
that is not part of their heritage.
Yeah.
No. The Klan is not a part of Eastern European heritage.
No, I can't. No. That should not be a connection on the trivia game. That's
no.
That one shouldn't be there, but there it is. And I would like to actually remind people as well that Time magazine, Life magazine, Sports Illustrated, fucking like Fortune, as well as the entire other end of that empire. What's his fucking name? That mogul that owned most of the press in the US at the time. But the point is, these guys were all very fascist. Like, very fascist.
Hearst or what?
Hearst, thank you. Yeah. So from Henry Luce and from Henry Luce having the most read publications in America, and to Hearst having the most publications in America, both of these guys were like fucking neck deep in Hitlerism and Italian fascism.
Oh yeah, and I mean,
Claire Luce, probably part of Gladio, and
yeah. That's what I was about to say.
These are deep foundational cultural touchstones in America. Add the Legion to that. Add fucking John Wayne to that.
Right,
literally a fucking fascist, as well as playing one in movies. Like. Dude,
what did we say? He was a subscriber to
fucking wasn't it the
Liberty
Lobby magazine? Yeah. Whatever the thing was
one
called.
Of them,
the Liberty Bell. Was that it?
They had many publications. Okay. I'm not sure which one he was subscribed to, but yeah, for sure. I mean, and this is the kind of thing that Gloria Swanson too, actually.
Interesting.
Not surprisingly, because I knew she was Republican, but
Wait, Swanson as in like the food heiress?
No, as in Sunset Boulevard.
Oh, okay.
I'm ready for my close Mr.
Yes, nice. Interesting.
Yeah.
She's a Liberty Lobby person?
Yeah, she was, I guess, subscribed to Liberty Lobby.
Okay. Wow. All right. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's one of these things when you look at, especially the financial elements of this, like how much money these groups get in the U.S. and how many like very influential backers you have.
What did you find Tolkien making notes in?
It's what was the name? I mentioned the name. It's the newspaper of the Empire Loyalists.
Yeah, right.
What was the? It's even a more ridiculous name organization than that.
It's pretty close. Yeah.
It's the precursor to the National Front.
Yeah,
headed by Chesterton's cousin.
Goddamn.
Yeah.
Yeah, everywhere. Yeah. And also, we also found out that to keep an eye out, I would say this is something that I learned so far in this first part of this arc, is to keep an eye on anybody in America who goes by Count or Countess.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that goes without saying.
Any title whatsoever, they're funding some weird fucking Nazi group.
No, absolutely. I mean,
yes.
And I think those are the guys that are. I mean, they're clearly more on the European thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I don't think that Carto's and some of those Americanist vision of American future.
And they put their money around. It was weird.
Yeah, they put their money around. I think people take money.
It's just like the Nazi.
I mean, we'll see like Edison's kind of weird connection to Holocaust denial too.
Also,
I mean,
yes,
rather distant in some ways.
Yeah.
But also not, because Carto's like into Edison as like
yeah. Didn't even talk about fucking Ford or whatever. But actually that will come up in a later episode of mine. But I was also going to say, anybody who identifies, I've learned this too in this part of the arc, anyone who is part of an association of any kind that has the phrase Anglo-American as part of the title,
yep,
fucking Nazis.
Yep, absolutely.
Like unfailingly, they're up to some shit.
Filthy. Free holy.
I would just check because I forgot. Biden gave a eulogy at Thurman's funeral.
Oh, yeah. I think he also said he was like proud of his relationship with Strong.
Yeah.
All right.
Is there a photo of Willis Carto and Thurman in the book that you read?
There are no photos in that book.
Oh, no.
Oh, boo.
And the internet doesn't have any.
No, did you look?
Yeah. There's Biden and Thurman, but no Thurman and Willis Carto.
Well, Carto famously kept out of like the press.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he didn't like to be seen. He was kind of a recluse for sure.
Okay.
He didn't like grant interviews often, and was rarely photographed.
But you know who Thurman did meet for sure?
Who's that?
And one of our characters from our previous arc, Father Stoico Kaljevic.
Oh,
right.
Word. Yes. All right. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well,
that probably about does it for now. Huh?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's your little, as I said in the last mid-arc recap, not a mid-arc
Just
recap.
to point out, all of our mid-arc recaps are in the first third of the arc.
They're in the first third of the arc.
Yes. So
it's not mid.
Just so you know, officially it's a mid-arc recap. We can't change the title now. We're like 4 in now.
Yeah. So
Our first mid-arc recap?
Was that like episode 6?
Yeah. We were young.
And now we're averaging at 20 is when we do the
fake mid-arc
the fake
recap.
mid-arc recap.
Yes.
That's actually a third arc.
Okay, so next thing we'll get into is Liberty Lobby.
Yes.
Then we'll go into National States Rights Party.
Then I've got some more fun, like American ruling class studies for us to do for a bit.
Okay.
And
some of that stuff will be on Patreon, right?
Yeah.
The Renaissance Party.
The Renaissance Party will be on Patreon,
and
yes.
a film.
A film connected to it.
Damn.
And then after that, I guess we'll go into the National Renaissance Party, and then
Tenepod Summer, people.
And at the end of the summer, for our patrons, we're gonna have a very special report.
We'll have special report.
Yes.
I'm very excited about it. It's a departure from the America arc completely, but it is properly weird. And
TENE News team will attend the conference, let's say.
Let's say that.
And they will actually attend. It's a real thing.
Yes.
We're not going to Chuck Fukia. We're going to a real place.
A real place.
With real people.
Yeah.
It's
the return of something real-ish.
It will be TNN, I guess.
We'll see. We'll see.
TNN on the ground.
It depends on how this plays out.
What kind of drugs y'all
if we
bring.
get run out of...
But I guess towards the end of the arc...
Hunted by Falcon.
We'll go into more like...
Very Chuck Fukian, though.
Modern American neo-Nazi groups like the American Front and possibly Tom Metzger's group, right?
But that's down the line. You can't psych them up for this shit.
The 50s keep pulling us back.
We're going to be in
so rich.
We'll be in the 60s for a while.
Yeah.
But we'll go even past those groups that I just mentioned in the arc and finish with some subcultural weirdos. I think.
So this mid arc is like a 10th of the arc.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, guys. Well,
I like this arc because it started in January, so it's
you're right.
It'll be kind of easy to
kind
of see.
Should we try to end it in a year? Is that our goal?
Maybe.
Dude, it's August already.
we're not going to get anywhere close to it. Yeah. We're going to get to like the 70s by the new year.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, we are nothing if not thorough.
I mean, we were already in the 70s. The California Reich thing was...
We did jump around a little bit in the timeline, but...
Because you guys in your arrow of time...
Yeah.
You got to be like me, unstuck. I was an hour late today.
He was.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying here.
Yeah. And you were the one who said that you need to finish up early.
You're right. Yeah, actually, probably around nowish.
Yeah. Which is why I didn't call initially, because I was like, he's got to be on his way.
Yeah.
You didn't forget.
No, I'm just unstuck from time.
Yeah.
The problem is I haven't figured out how to make that with space, too. But we're getting there. Anyway, maybe my next episode, I'll have figured out space time, and I'll just be free.
Okay.
All right. See you guys.
Later, guys.
Bye.
Hey there, all you free people enjoying your free episodes from The Empire Never Ended. Maybe scoot on over to patreon.com/tenepod and become a patron. We publish 3 additional premium episodes there alongside the 2 freebies each month. We're on Twitter too, also at Tenepod, but our Patreon is really where it's at. See you there, maybe?
We didn't originate on this planet.